Welcome back to Show Me Trucks. In this video I am going to work on the camper shell, trying to fix some problems that have been around for a while. I start off with putting some screens on the windows. The windows flip up and I just don't want bugs or anything getting in there while I'm sleeping. That way I can have it open and get some air ventilation. Next up, I worked on putting locks on the camper door. I never been able to lock it, and it never actually shut very well because it doesn't lock. I use some simple little cabinet door locks. And last, I made a little panel for the back of the door. The way the aluminum flaps over, it's kind of gross, so I wanted to make sure and cover that. Plus, I'm going to put a screen on the back door, and I want to make sure and cover the screws that are holding the screen to the door. So I hope you guys enjoy. Watch the channel. Make sure to subscribe. Here we go. Screen is I just got it from Home Depot. I think it's $9 a piece. Like I said, I just used little tacks in there, just because the head of the tack will disperse a little bit of the pressure on the screen. I used a lot of tacks. Just the wind will kind of put some pressure on that screen, and if anyone pokes their finger into it, I would like them not to tear it loose. So cutting around the shaft where the knob comes out was a little hard. Also, I make sure and put down pressure on it and keep it tight the whole way before I put the tack in. And then I just cut off the extra. Nothing crazy here. If I didn't have the outside panel, I might care about it a little more, but I have a panel. I just hit all the tacks down with a hammer, just that way they sit nice and flush. And then I switch over to the driver's side. I had to pull that panel off and just repeat the process. This side, I switched directions, but you know, it's the same. Just make sure it's tight. Make sure there's no cuts in your screen. On the brand new piece I got, there was already a hole in the screen, and that's not for me. It's just like that from the store. So make sure and pay attention to that whenever you're doing it. My front window doesn't need a screen, and those little small squares but diamond shaped ones, they don't open up, so they don't need screens either. So eventually I'll get to the back door screen, but just threw the panel back up, make sure it all fit, make sure everything looked okay, and threw a couple screws in there. This panel's not completely grinding down on the weld, so you can kind of see that, but looks good. Hopefully the bugs stay out. So let's move on to the next. I got these little cabinet door locks, and I'm going to put them on the back door. That way I can get the back door to shut and latch properly. A lot of times these doors use like some real long rods and a little twist lever. I wanted something a little more simple and cheap, and I didn't have any of that stuff. So all I did was grab these locks. I pulled the shorter lever off and put the longer lever on. I also wanted to mark it so that I drilled the hole and ran these through in between this divider line. I had to use 2 pieces of 1 by 2 inch aluminum that was from the old camper door. If I would have went right on that seam, it would have been horrible. So I went right in between. I wanted them nice and symmetrical on both sides. I just ran a little step bit to open that up. I want to say that hole was 3/4, and I don't have any drill bits that big. So the step bit and the aluminum was real easy. I had to trim away some of the aluminum, that way it sit down nice and flush. But you can see the hole right there. Sits down, looks nice. Just tighten that nut. That one washer has little tangs in it. So on a wood, like a cabinet door, it digs in, but on this it doesn't. Then I wanted to mark exactly where the lever will sit on the camper. I just drilled it out with some holes so that it can recess down in there, and then cut it out with a cutoff wheel a little bit, and then just try to keep drilling and just waller out that hole. That outside tin is aluminum's real easy. The wood inside was better, but you had to kind of watch out for staples. But there it goes. Nothing insane, simple. It's always easy. It's always better to keep everything simple. Alright, I'll show you around the back door. This is what it looked like without the trim piece on. You can see all that the tin is just wrapped around the back side and then loose. So that's why I'm making this cover for it. That way it holds all this down into place, all tight. Also the screen window is going to tuck back here also, but you can kind of see how that looks. Got a bunch of flaps out, especially on the ends where it all overlaps. So this trim piece will make it look a lot better. I'm just measuring the door. I don't want it hanging off the side, so I wanted to take about 1/8 off each corner. Just getting all my stuff ready. I had these aluminum strips from some scrap metal I picked up a while back. I think they hold down carpet. They already had a bunch of holes in it, but it's free, so I'm gonna use it. Just mark some little 45 degrees in each end. It's a big rectangle, so you know, just 45 each corner. Try to get all that extra scrap off the corners, that way it welds properly. Also, I cleaned all the edges with a wire brush and make sure there wasn't any steel or grinding flakes in it, that way it welds properly. Also, these back doors, I pulled the screw off and then I pulled the screws holding the latch off, or the hinges off. That way I could pull this door off and set it on the ground. It was going to be way easier to work on the ground. So if you never worked on these, you just pick them up flat and then slide them out sideways. Usually it goes pretty easy. Just be careful. I just don't want to bend any of that stuff. I don't have extra camper shells laying around, so I just laid a little towel down or a little blanket down and laid this flat. That way I didn't scratch up the glass or anything like that. But that's how the little channel looks on these camper shells. Then I wanted to measure on the framework that I'd cut, and I welded up, but my camera ran out of battery, so you didn't get to see that. I want to make sure this hole is lined up with the latch mechanism. I want to make sure that I can take that on and off without having to take all my panels off. I just marked everything. I drilled in the corners. It helps you have nice rounded corners whenever you cut out little squares like this, but I need the hinge brackets to be able to fit in here. Then I just center punched a bunch of holes, and I'm getting this thing ready so that it can screw into the back door, and just drilled a bunch of holes. Nothing crazy. I wanted the screw heads to recess down into the panel as much as I can. And then I went ahead and test fit the panel on there and made sure and clamped it down to make sure everything looked okay. And then I used the holes that I had already drilled, push the tin up as tight as I can, and then drill the hole through. That way I could run a screw through. Aluminum's soft, so you don't need to tap it or anything. You just get the holes a little less than you need, and then run the screws through and keep everything tight. I wanted that tin to sit up underneath the trim panel and keep everything looking nice and tight. And then I had to cut a little notch out of this end. The pieces I had weren't wide enough to cover up all the way to the window, so I had to weld on some little wider pieces on the sides, about a little inch and an eighth wide. Here I'm just tack welding everything together. Use a bunch of clamps so nothing moves too much. I haven't welded that much since school back in 03 or 2 or something like that. So I'm learning. It's getting better. I liked welding on the 3/32 aluminum. It went a lot smoother, but aluminum is very touchy. You have to kind of watch your heat, so you kind of have to let off the foot pedal as you go. That way it doesn't get too hot and it melts all of your rod down into the piece. It's touchy, but it looked okay. My start and stops are rough. I'm still working on that, but it works for what I'm doing. A lot of welding. I think this panel is 60 inches wide. Alright, and this is what it looks like with the aluminum on there. That's what those holes are for, so that the latch lever can sit up in here. Also, I left area for these latches to sit, so I could put this plate in. I need to grind this back just a touch, but I kind of like the welds exposed, but I'm gonna grind them down. My fiance said it looks like scars, which she thought would scare me off, but I thought that was kind of cool. So a lot of welding today. The next video, I'm gonna grind all that down, smooth it all out. But I'm pretty excited. I also need to grind a little bit off this lip over here and a little bit right here, where it's kind of sitting on top of that. So next video will be putting that screen on, grinding that smooth. I'm gonna try to buff it up too, just to see how nice I can polish it up. My truck looks kind of rough, so I don't really care that much, but I just want to see the thinner camper panels didn't smooth out as well. It's kind of because it's thin metal and it's hard to work with. So hopefully this 3/32 is a little bit easier sanding. I got a little more leeway for burning through. So that'll be the next video. Hope you guys liked it. Make sure to subscribe. Let me know what you guys want to see in the channel. Later.